Episode 142 of the State of the Old Republic podcast was originally recorded on April 1st, 2026. It's the State of the Old Republic podcast. This week on the show, I'm recording this on April 1st, but this is no joke. Joining me on the show today is Samantha Béart, the actor behind the likes of Karlach in Baldur's Gate 3, and of course, Darth Nul in Star Wars: The Old Republic. I'll talk to them about what it was like bringing Darth Nul to life and some of their other projects, including It Takes a Village and a new game, Fading Echoes. And with that, it's time to make the jump to Lightspeed.
And cue the moron.
Welcome to episode 142 of the State of the Old Republic podcast. I'm your host, Ted, and as you heard in the opening, I have another great show lined up for you today. Today's episode is going to be a little different. I have a wonderful guest joining me on the show. There will be spoilers for Galactic Threads and Masters Enigma, so let's get to it. Today's guest is someone I've been looking forward to speaking with ever since Galactic Threads was released. They are a BAFTA-nominated, classically trained actor, the host of It Takes a Village. Many of you know them as Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3, and all of you know them from Star Wars: The Old Republic as Darth Nul. Or is it Rinaya, or is it just Nul? Well, we'll explore that and more with Samantha Béart. Welcome to the State of the Old Republic podcast.
Thank you for having me. That was a beautifully read introduction. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, I'm thrilled that you're here. Now that players have finally seen Galactic Threads and Masters Enigma, we've seen a lot of Darth Nul, so I'm really excited to talk about that. Before we dive in, I just want to say to everyone, if you haven't played through the story yet, first, I hope you're okay. And second, we will touch on some spoilers for both Galactic Threads and Masters Enigmas. So you've been warned. But with that, we can dive in now. And I'll just start at the beginning here. And I've heard you talk about this before, but it's worth hearing about again. Can you tell us how you got the part of Nul and what it was like joining Star Wars and the SWTOR family?
So bearing in mind that Star Wars to me is like gravity, it's always been in my life. It's just a fact of existence on this planet. I'm a massive fan. Jackie, who's the senior community manager for Broadsword, who looks after SWTOR, posted a video of her reacting rather viscerally to certain scenes in Karlach's journey in Baldur's Gate 3. And I clocked where she works, and she's a friend of a friend as well, which is why it was sent to me. And I slid into her DMs and said, if there's anything, I would love to be in a Star War, and please think of me kindly. And I didn't pitch for a big role or anything like that. I'd be very grateful to play anything in Star Wars. But she did pitch for a big role, and here we are today.
Oh, that's awesome. So was there a moment where it clicked that you weren't just joining SWTOR to play a side character or random Jawa, that you were actually becoming a central figure in an entire storyline?
Yeah, when they gave me the character name Darth Nul, I thought she sounds pretty important. And they were very open about, her background and everything, and it was pretty epic. So yeah, I thought, oh, okay. And then of course I was able to go back and look at old cinematics and things and go, oh, they've been, the holocron and the holocron's been talked about a lot, but the lightsaber's been available in the cartel shop for a while.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, she's a pretty important person.
Well, that's sort of interesting too, right? Because as players, we first heard about Darth Nul. I mean, it's been quite a few years now. It was before Legacy of the Sith even launched. And so you're kind of coming into this midstream, sort of mid-story. What was that like for you, or did that have an impact on did you have to sort of get caught up on what was going on with her?
Yeah, so the team were very good in giving me that background story. Well, in terms of starting out as Renaya, and then we're going to go straight into spoilers, aren't we? So starting out as Renaya, and then being expelled from the Jedi, and then being turned by the Emperor, because we're seeing her after her life. So we've got all this rich backstory before, but my God, she's been everywhere.
Yeah, she has. And so when you sort of heard of that material for Darth Nul, was there anything that sort of grabbed you about it? Was it that sort of Jedi to Sith arc, or the fact that she's also a scientist? Anything that really, really intrigued you about the character?
Yeah, so I normally play pretty heroic people. And I'm sure Null sees herself as incredibly heroic because she's getting that work done. She doesn't particularly care who is backing her work as long as that work gets done, which is fascinating and seems rather prescient. I've worked in tech before, and when you talk to folks about perhaps maybe the ethics of what they're doing, there is sometimes just a sort of, they see it very differently than I do. I tend to look at who the paymaster is, but a lot of tech folks will go, well, you know what, it's getting made. It's getting made, and that's what matters. And it's pure, it's mathematical, so it can't be biased and it can't be political. And I've been exposed to that a lot, actually. So it was really interesting that they've put that into a character like this, who seems to be quite anarchic in her attitude towards the Jedi and the Sith, which then aligns her with Malgus quite a bit, doesn't it? So I'll be interested to see where they take it from there.
Well, it is interesting to see because, she has a little bit of that ends justify the means sort of attitude, and she just has this work that she's been trying to complete for, I guess, I don't know, centuries now. It's hard to know how long it's truly been. So in that regard, she's a bit of an antagonist. But do you think that she's sort of like this villain because of her goals, or is it just mainly her methods at this point that sort of put her on the bad side, or both, perhaps?
Depends who you ask. The reason, again, spoilers, guys. One of the reasons she's sort of removed from the Jedi Council is because she's contacting people with very tenuous Force connections and letting them know. And we know the Jedi like to go and pick and choose who they choose to train and associate with and all of that. And the idea that everyone could be gods if Renaya gets her way, then that's really scary to them because they do like that control. The Sith also like control, but I imagine they won't let these new Force users use free choice. They're going to want them to recruit them to the dark side. And then there's the dark side. She works for the dark side. It's not, probably, that's a hint. It's probably not apolitical and completely devoid of politics and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, she's an interesting. She doesn't see it that way, and as I said, there's a lot of people out there who are very powerful who don't see that their work is affecting things at a scale.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you get the sense because she's not the first character that we saw was a Jedi and then became a Sith or just fell to the dark side. But I mean, her fall seems very different. I don't know if it was willing on her part, or as he said, she just sort of had this work she wanted to do, and so this was a pathway to do that. And it not so much an embracing of Sith ideology and saying, "Oh, this is who I am or who I want to be," but this is well, she was kind of put into a corner a little bit, because of the Sith Emperor and who he was and what but she was saying, "Well, I've got my work to do, and this will get me to the end, hopefully get me across the finish line." So she was okay with it versus just a true sort of fall and embracing of the dark side, I guess.
Yeah, I think her hand was very much turned. I think in Master's Enigma, we talk about the fact that the Emperor's killed her followers. So. But then, sometimes the way she sees them, they're a bit like guinea pigs. So it's an interesting relationship she has with them.
I know. Well, I'm a big fan of some of the behind the scenes stuff, so I'd sort of maybe get into the booth a little bit with you, if that's okay. As players, we get the story, of course, in pieces, right? We do it sort of update by update. I assume that you don't necessarily work that way. So when you were cast, I mean, how much of Null's story did you actually get? Were you given the entire trajectory up front? Or do you discover it in stages as these sessions come up?
With a character like this, because she's lived and died, like we need to know before we start, it's certainly not helpful to have it be a surprise later on. Oh, by the way, she wasn't that bothered to be told, whatever like that, because that completely changes a performance. Someone who's resisting dark side versus jumps into it willingly. They gave, I think this is a while ago now, so bear with me, they gave me a brief Bones outline in emails before we did the session. And then in the session itself, it was explained to me fully. So I had that fresh in my mind. Hey, at least we recorded in order. It's not like Baldur's Gate where it's completely out of order, and then it's only when the game comes out and people are playing that you realise how it all fits together.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I have some questions about that too, because even within a specific update, right? Null she is a complex character. Like she's almost like a constellation of selves. And in these updates, we see holo recordings. We see the mind trap versions, which include a young Null and then this sort of older witch. I don't know why they had to do that. I thought the character model they had looked so cool.
They have to show she's a Sith, right? They have to show she's like 1,000 years old and she's been in essentially isolation for 1,000 years and has gone a bit mad. Yeah. I wasn't a fan. I prefer the younger look.
It's a terrific character model. One of the better ones that I've seen in the game. Our team really did a nice job on that. And then of course we have these 3 different AI avatars as well. So it's a lot going on. So how did you approach differentiating all of these while still keeping them recognizably the same person?
Yeah, with a lot of guidance from the narrative team, particularly Ashley Rule, who was on calls, the Caitlin and the director, Dara as well. Like there were a lot of people on those calls making sure, because it relied on them being consistent within each strand, right? I think they said I ended up playing 5 different, it would be 5 different versions of her, because you've got the original call, you've got the mind trap in the first update, and then you've got those AIs in the next one. But what was nice is because we started with the Sith version, like her angriest and most British sounding, we sort of went backwards. I think if I'd started with Renaya, I would have made her a lot softer, and it would have been harder to make it sound like the same person going into the dark side version of herself. So really, for me, going backwards, she was like your typical pompous Jedi, which totally makes sense that, she was doing all this stuff on the side, outside of the rules of the Jedi, the Jedi Order at that time. Totally makes sense. She thought she knew better than them, or she was just going to do her own thing anyway. So that totally made sense. And that was a decision we made together, because there's nothing to support that. But in the text that we have, because we don't have that sort of time. But maybe in future that's something they'll go into a little bit more. But I think the timeline's pretty clear for her. And she's spoken to, in Masters Enigma, she's spoken to that fall and what that was actually like experiencing it at the time.
When you perform for this kind of game, I assume that you're in the booth alone, meaning that you don't have any scene partners to go alongside. So how does that work? Like what kind of direction do you receive? I mean, and then do you record like, say, all of Renaya's lines at once and then all of Null's, or do they have you swapping back and forth?
Yeah, so it's, in my experience, it's normal to be alone in the booth. The director will read in the lines, and you just do it in the blocks of character. So when we did Masters Enigma, I think, because I said it was a while ago, I think we did it as the different, let's call it AIs for argument's sake, just the different AIs, and went from there. So it was consistent within that. They also, in the business, called a voice print. So it's basically what you sounded like last time you came in. And there were some gaps between recording sessions. So they played that back to you and you go, oh, okay, that's exactly what I was going for. So that's where the consistency is. But there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of guidance for that.
That's an interesting point too, when you say you're coming back for different sessions, and you're Samantha Béart, you're not Darth Nul per se. So you've got to remember what you did for that performance, and it can't sound different. And is that a challenge, or is it just so you hear it and then, okay, I know what I did, I'm good to go?
Yeah, the latter, that one.
You need a little warm up for that.
It's that one, it's fine. I've been doing this a while now, it's all good.
Yeah.
And I don't, that's why I don't describe myself as a voice actor. With me, there's no real vocal gymnastics. Those people are incredible, and that's what they do. And I wouldn't want to be confused with people who can do that. So yeah, it's not so much of a stretch that, oh my God, how did I do it? How do I get back into it? It's pretty simple.
So how does your background and your training play into this? You're acting, right? But you're just without, say, a costume or props or something. There's not a physical element to it. But does that restrict you at all, or does that really not matter?
It doesn't matter. For me, it's like, if I say black box theatre, do you know what I mean? It's what it sounds like, right? You have no scenery, no costumes, no props. It's all your imagination, and it's very much set there. As I said, she's, pretty standard humanoid character. It's not a creature that's going to require me to, again, do something really dramatic. Try not to hyperventilate, because that's what happens when you're breathing heavily. There's none of that sort of stuff. But yeah, sometimes you have to make the shape to find that vocal tone. But again, I'm not doing anything extreme in this case. It was more consistency. And like I said, they've recorded everything. They can just play it back. Even between the biomes in Masters Enigma, if I'd got lost and gone, actually, yeah, we need to go re-record that line within the same session, they'll just play me back what I've done. So but yeah, I think it's good to point it out, because they're a bit more subtle. They weren't different characters. They're different aspects of herself, but it's the same person. So we just had to make sure it definitely sounds like the same person. But if you're doing new writing in theatre, you're jumping around, you're changing things, lines are getting changed all the time. What you want from the other actor might change, and that will be written in and everything. There's that experimentation, and I find that that's probably closest to what it's like doing this sort of thing.
Do you have a chance to ad-lib at all in this, or is it pretty strictly just reading what's on the page, or do you even think to do that?
I don't even think to do that. So in British actor training, the word is God, and you don't mess with it. And especially if you've been, I think in film and TV, you're encouraged to change things, because there's so much going on in your eyes, and you can see the actor struggling with lines. They don't want that. But in other formats, you have to make that work. I've never had a problem reading a line. Sometimes I don't understand the line or the context of the line, and I'll ask for more. But I've never gone, no, don't get it, or I'm not saying that. That's not my job. And then you've got to bear in mind in the process of making games, the actors are often the last to come on board. So that'll have been translated and localized. There's a lot of knock-on effects.
Oh, true.
So you can't do that. But as I said, it's a problem I like to have. It's my own little game I get to play, and see how do I justify that. But they said there's nothing glaring and, oh my God, I better say something because it doesn't work. We've got to change this line. It's all my experiences have been very well written. So I've never had that situation.
And as we all know, like, Star Wars has its own vocabulary, and I think it was, Harrison Ford who famously said, you can write this stuff, but you can't say it. So what were some of the terms or references that maybe made you stop and ask for greater context? Did things like that come up at all?
Yes, remember, Harrison was on the front line. He's the one setting these words in this universe, so I totally feel for him, because there's no reference, whereas I've grown up on it, and not only that, but books and the extended universe in general, TV shows, all of that, so I've grown up in it. So fair play to him, because it was brand new. I think... Oh, a lot of the time, because it's not her, it's a rendering of her, and we're calling it AI for the purposes of brevity here. Yeah. So you can ask it anything, and it will try and work out what Renaya would or Null would say, but it's not her, so it doesn't always have such a strong opinion on, maybe in the same way that living Null or Renaya would, if that makes sense. So she can report the facts, and she can be there vocally where she was, because when you turn Sith, you start to sound like this. So you're very, very angry about everything because you're a Sith. But really, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just making sure I'm talking about the right thing, that I know what I'm talking about. There was a lot of relaying of facts, because she's that scientist. It's been a while since I've played a very smart person, but that's... If I was ever to be typecast, it would be as a scientist. I've played a few in sci-fis over the years. And rattling off that stuff. I think so that's it. So a lot of the time you're sight reading, or you've only received a portion of the script, and sometimes, they'll change it on the day, and that's totally cool. But when it's sci-fi and fantasy language, and it's to be delivered factually, like what you're talking about, that'll take a couple of runs, and you chat with it, and you chat with them about it, and you make sure everybody's on the same page. And you sound like the scientist who wrote this stuff, and all of that. But that's familiarity, and that's sight reading skills. Yeah. And again, for anyone listening who wants to do this sort of work, like this practice, that's all it is.
But as you're going through and seeing some of these, whether it's a term or a planet or a place pop up? Do you stop and sort of, does the Star Wars sort of fan in you curiosity kick in, and do you just sort of interrupt yourself and say, well, where is this place, or what is this? I haven't heard of this, or that kind of thing? Or
I try and read ahead as much as I can. So I remember when Elon came up and I went, what's that? So they very quickly told me, it's very quick. But my favourite moment was, again, sight reading, and right at the end I said, may the force be with you. And then I went, I said the thing! I said the thing! I'm in a Star Wars! And it was very exciting. It was very cool to be able to say that.
And did you ever get any kind of like lore dumps from the writing team as you went about it, or have those kind of conversations with them?
Minimal, because I know the universe a bit more. I think it's much harder if it's a new IP, then you're going to have to sit down. And you're lucky, you get to sit down with someone and they'll explain it to you, or they'll send you a document. That's only starting to come into games more recently. You were just expected to get on with it. But as a performer, I want to give you my best performance, and I can only do that with context. Time is money in the booth, so you need to do it before. But in the room, if it's a pronunciation of a name, or, that planet is there relative to that one, or she's talking about a fallen empire, it's very quick to get that in there. You just make sure, again, pronunciation is consistent. And, that's what they're there for as well. They're there to make sure everything's cool.
Now, I know I watched some of the interview that you had done. We got with Swotorista, and she was doing a bit of a playthrough with you when you were online. So I know you've seen some of this, but, with Galactic Threads and Masters Enigma both out there, have you had a chance to see all of the final scenes in the game? And if so, was there anything that maybe hit differently once you saw the visuals, the pacing, the music, all of it come together?
I must confess I haven't had a chance to watch Masters Enigma. I'm normally on top of it, but thank you for reminding me. I will go and do that immediately after this interview. But we didn't have time to, because it takes a while. And I didn't realise she hadn't played the first, well, she was playing on stream the very first introduction with the fight in the mine prison, which I do know very well. I've seen that. And I haven't had a chance to see it yet. So we just saw, I think she was just catching up to Renaya, and everyone in chat was like, oh my God, it's Master Renaya. And that was very cool.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but I'm more curious to know is, by watching that, is there feedback that you get from that would help you in future updates or anything like along those lines, or it's just like, wow, I read this line and now to see it play out, I don't know if it would influence what you might have done differently, or if things came out better than what you had anticipated.
Yeah, so that's what I'm actually trying to avoid, and that's why I ask so many questions in the booth. So when I watch it back, I go, oh, that really works nicely. Earlier on in the career, and that's not just video games, a film can be one where this happens because you're not in control of the edit they use, and you go, oh, you used that take, did you? That's interesting. Theatre is really the only format in which you have total control over that performance as it comes across the audience. But yeah, I feel that I had the information I needed to give the performance they wanted. I thought they were incredibly clear about that and how these different aspects of this person fits together. So the little I saw on that stream was like, yeah, okay, that's exactly as I saw it. They described it to me very nicely, so I knew it was a hologram, and I didn't know they were going to be red and blue. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. But no, it was not like the horror of going, oh, I would have done that completely differently if I saw. Yeah, there's none of that. So I'm really happy with it. Did
you know they were going to be fighting each other at the end there, sort of, or clashing with one another? Yeah.
It's like, so how often does Null go mad is the question. Poor thing, yeah.
Well, I thought it was a terrific performance, and I think Masters Enigma really captures the heart of your work. Like I said, we get Renaya, who's this one personality, and then we get Darth Nul, who is this other personality, and then the two merge together to become really just Null, who, again, is this third personality, and yet they're clearly one individual, and that does come across. And you don't think about this too much when you're playing the game, but I think getting a chance to talk to you about it kind of puts it in perspective for me. And I'm hoping, the listeners out there can kind of start to see that a little bit. I mean, we don't want to break the fourth wall too much when we're playing, but it's good to know that I always like to think about that. There are real people behind these games, whether they're writing it, putting the cinematics, or like you doing these performances. And so I never lose sight of that. I always sort of have that in my mind a little bit as I play through it. I'm always impressed by that.
Yeah, and shout out to the narrative team and the director, because it's a group of people that can keep me on track it's a real collaborative process because they know it. They know this backwards because they wrote it and they know where it's going. Remember, they're not always going to tell me where it's going and what they've got planned or whatever like
so
that.
So they don't always fill you in. So you kind
only
of
for what's in the
makes,
room. For what again, I knew her whole life
Yep.
story, but I don't need to know if they're planning on bringing her back or not. Like that doesn't help me give the performance as written. So I'm just there to do that particular session, and that's the life of an actor in video games. Obviously, I always ask. I brought my little 3D printed lightsaber they did for me with me, just to make them know, like, I actually am aware of what I'm in.
I saw you with that. That's
It's a very cool team. They're very sweet. It's the whole team that make these performances, and then you think how many of them are in this game over the last coming up to 15 years. It's a phenomenal effort.
Star Wars has these, or SWTOR, I should say, has these characters that influence, whose influence echoes for centuries. Revan, Sith Emperor. So without touching anything too spoiler sensitive, do you see Nul as someone whose ideas or inventions could leave that kind of long-term mark on the galaxy? You know, are we opening a Pandora's box here? And do you think we'll be dealing with her for a while now?
Rather selfishly, I hope so. I'd love to come back. But yeah, I mean, it's been I would assume so. I remember there was some feedback after the first update, where you fought her as her in the Mind Prism, and that ends, because otherwise the game ends if you die. And everyone went, oh, okay, that's a bit of an anticlimax. And it was like, no, there's more. They're not going to build up this character for years, and then there's one fight and it's over. But that holocron has been in the plot for a while. There's some really big ideas about what could happen to the order of the universe if we enact the machine that the instructions lead to. And we know that Malgus is very sympathetic to Nul's point of view as well. So I would assume that there's going to be, there's certainly more debate about it. I hope someone doesn't go, oh, well, that didn't work, and chucks the holocron in a bin somewhere.
That's what I'm wondering too, right? You almost want well, I'm not sure I want to see. I'm not sure it's probably a good idea to activate this machine, but we have to find out, right? I'm just wondering, like, would they really do that? Like, we get to the point where that might happen, and then we destroy the holocron, destroy the machine, and kill everybody, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's the end. I don't think it'll.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speculate as a fan. That's it. As I said, they deliberately don't tell me anything, so you can't get it out of me.
But getting into Nul's head again, do you think she'd be okay with what Malgus is doing, what Jadis is doing, whatever Hedda Cole is doing, and letting these people touch her toys and use them? Or is she be like, no, hands off, this is my stuff, and I'm not happy about this?
I think with her, the ends justify the means a lot, which makes me and her very different. But there's a lot of people that behave like that in the world. It's very realistic. I mean, again, spoilers, if you fight her in the Mind Prison, the last thing she says is, my work must be done. I don't think she cares who does it, as long as it gets done.
Well, if you created a player character in SWTOR, and I believe you've done at least that, and we can talk about that in a second, and we're to reach that moment where you confront Darth Nul, what do you think that would be like for you? Or have you actually played games where you've been behind the scenes and voiced the characters? What's that sort of like?
Yeah, it's as a gamer, it's cool. It's the ultimate game. It's you're in the world, you're immersed. I created a character called Carrie-Anne Moss Isley. She looks exactly like Carrie-Anne Moss, all right? That's the way around that happened. I went, hang on a sec, there's a pun to be made. And she's a sort of wide-eyed Padawan at the moment. I haven't had time to catch up with her. But to be honest with you, Ted, I just stood in the middle of a town square and listened to everything and watched everything. And I was so fully immersed. And this time I'm not on rails, on a TV show. I'm telling the story. And I just sat there immersed for a bit. And then I experienced the Jedi Council. I was like, oh, God, I'm not sure if I'm fully committed to this. They really are something else, which I love about since the prequels, really, the writing of the council is pretty flawed, actually, and single-minded. And that might be the reason why there's a lot of, the dark side is able to prey on members of that council, because the Sith are no better. I love seeing a couple of Sith arguing amongst themselves. There's nothing quite like it. So I don't know what's going to happen in that character. That could go either way, really, to be honest with you. I was getting quite annoyed being told I couldn't do anything. Maybe I wasn't really meant to be a Jedi, but yeah, it's. I'd love to have more time to play. When Baldur's Gate 3 came out, I played as Karlach because you're able to play as the origin characters, and that was pretty cool. And these worlds are so immersive, you forget that you played those characters sometimes, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in Demon's Souls, I was one of the...
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
too,
yeah. I suppose. Well, a testament to the developers that there's so much there's so many other things going on that you're fully immersed. And then also Demon's Souls, I was a player character in that. But it's mainly yelling and dying in many different ways because it's Demon's Souls. And then the Excavation of Hobbs Barrow was the main character in that as well, and that was fun. But with that one, they gave me the entire script. It's a much shorter micro indie game, so I was able to see absolutely how I fitted it into the world and everything like that. But that was still fun to play because that was 2022 and it's not 2022 anymore. So what's nice is over time you do forget a lot of the process, so it does become fresh when you play, and you go, didn't remember doing that. That's pretty cool.
All right, well, after Galactic Threads came out, you sort of did this small series of videos of sort of Darth Nul visits Disneyland, which were fantastic. Have you thought about doing more of that?
Watching.
Maybe.
I would love to do more. I think I'd get kicked out of Disneyland if I try that again, because you're not supposed to dress up as characters. Yeah. But what character was I? They didn't know because the game wasn't out yet.
Well, maybe you should do something. Maybe you should do one where Darth Nul plays SWTOR and do that series.
That'd be interesting. I think the idea of Darth Nul dropped into different realities which seem familiar but aren't quite right, and is quite angry about it. I think that's the way to go in. I also did a parody of the 1987 British cult film called With Nail and I. It took me way too long to realise it sounds like With Null and I. And so for the 5 Anglophiles out there in the States who also love Star Wars, that was for you. I love it. It's so much fun. It's a very easy cosplay to do compared to some of the other characters I've played. And I got to walk around town in a little ratty black bathrobe and some cheap ski goggles.
But it works.
It's a joy.
It totally works, though. It looks great.
Around.
There's a...
You're very kind.
You should go to a Star Wars convention or something like that and just have some fun with it. In fact, I think Star Wars Celebration next year in LA, the 50th anniversary, I can't believe I'm saying that, of Star Wars A New Hope. Jeez. Still younger than I am.
Exactly, and yeah, that's. Remember, I was there for the D&D 50-year celebrations as well, so 50 seems to be the magic number. Yeah, I mean, if I went to Celebration, I might wear a good cosplay rather than the really bad one that I... But for every day, for the little parody videos, the worse the cosplay is, the better, I think.
Well, before we wrap up, I did want to talk about some of your other work. You have your own podcast called It Takes a Village. So you think you've built something really special with that. Can you tell us about what it is and what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so I prefer to call it a chat show. We film it, and I really want you to see the guests. I know we call everything a podcast now, but for me, podcast is always audio only, but that's fine. So I'm an introvert. And what happens is if you put spotlight on me, I want to share it with other people, I want to get it off me. But also, I get way too much credit for what I'm doing, particularly in games. And I think that's because we have very little behind the scenes content. And that it gets super meta because I'm very influenced by all those wonderful behind the scenes videos that Industrial Light and Magic did. And I know countless people who got into very specific roles in the film industry because they knew the roles existed. Right? So I know a couple of prop makers who work at Shepperton and Pinewood and have worked on Star Wars films because they were kids growing up watching those. So that's really important. And then it's really important to document our industry. We keep calling it a young industry, but we're getting older and we're not writing this stuff down or passing it on. And I think it's a real shame to not do that. When a company goes under, and in this day and age, AAAs particularly love to seem to close shop even when a game is a success. That information is lost. All that knowledge is lost. It's just tragic to me. And when Baldur's Gate 3 became a thing, I was being solely credited for Karlach, which was immensely annoying because we have whole departments. First of all, they'd say it's a voice role, it's not fully mocapped. So you're erasing the work of the mocap engineers and our movement directors who use a lot of theatrical techniques to work with us, or in my case at least. A cinematic department, a cleanup department, the animators, the testers. There's just so many people, and myself and a few other actors just kept saying it takes a village, just kept saying it again and again. And I was streaming Baldur's Gate 3 as Karlach because I thought I'd be hilarious, and then got to a point where Twitch turned that into a money-making exercise, and I wasn't comfortable doing that with that character or being that character forever or whatever that is. I did quite a few hours of it, and then I think I did 5 full streams of that. And then I thought, I want to find out what other people do in this industry. And if you go through my YouTube, I think right at the bottom, one of the first things I posted on my YouTube channel was a half-day convention called Game Voices Connect, where in groups I interviewed, we did panels, I hosted panels, and we had writers, casting directors, a director's sort of workshop to see what it actually looks like in the booth. And then I also showed some post-production. So here's the mess you've made, and here's the poor people that have to deal with it. So I've always been interested in how the sausage is made, as it were. And there's so many wonderful people who've also helped me. And in this game, in the video game industry, people wear so many different hats. So for instance, in SWOTOR, the community manager was the first person to get me on the radar of the game and get me cast. That's interesting. Doesn't happen in different media. You go for a casting director. Composers, sound engineers, they might be directing you in the room. And I think the more understanding the actors have about how this works, and to be a bit more patient with them, because it might be their first time directing or whatever, or the writer will be, there's all of that sort of stuff, and it works very differently to the formats we're trained in. So there's a bit of an education thing, there's a bit of a careers fair, but there's also giving people their flowers. It's really important for me to do that. I socialise with these people. It's a very flat hierarchy all the time, and I don't like the idea that I operate on a separate level to everyone else. I want to bring everyone with me. So it's my small contribution to that, and I was very lucky that GDC and PAX East allowed me to do that live, and we should be putting those videos up quite soon. So that's a very long answer, but it took me a while to get there.
No, it was a terrific answer. It was great, and I love that too. Like I said, I love seeing how all this stuff works too. I mean, it's fun to play these games and obviously experience the final product, the end product, but to understand how it all comes about. I've always been fascinated by that, whether it's what goes into making the music or the writing and putting it all together. I just love peeling back the curtain, as it were, and seeing how it's all happens, because it's usually not what you think it is. In some ways, it's
yeah. I mean, what's telling is so many guests on that show have come in from different disciplines. I think all but one. Nobody grew up wanting to be a game dev because they didn't know what it was, because it's not very documented. It's not documented. So yeah, I think that's just really important. Particularly as whatever's happening in the games industry right now, I can imagine it'd be very discouraging to get involved. But there are other ways in. You don't have to do AAA. You don't have to work in a silo,
And you also have another project you're working on. It's a game called Fading Echo that's coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we just exhibited that quite a bit at PAX East. So again, in unprecedented moves. It's an indie. I have no NDA. The only thing I won't do is tell you story spoilers. But what's interesting again is when they restrict you the NDA, it's like, what exactly are you stopping me from saying, right? They gave me the key for the game. It's fun. I can say that. I can tell you it's a fun game. You should play it. It's out in demo. It's made by former Blizzard devs, based out of Lyon in France. So they know how to ship a game. It's a small team. We seem to have half the OG cast from Critical Role in it. We have Matt, Laura, Sam, and Liam. I hope we can get more. I met Ashley the other day, and I was like, come over. Water's lovely. Come in. But I mean, we've done this game now, so maybe if it's a success, we'll have some future opportunities. It's based on a TTRPG, and it's a first-person action adventure desert punk shenanigan. Set in the world of Echo. It's about our IP creator, Manu, says it's about 5% of the world he's created. We're getting a little keyhole into that world. And like I said, you play it on Steam at the moment. It'll be coming to Xbox and PlayStation 2 when it releases in Q3 later this year. But it's just fun. It's a short game, and it's fluid. My character, one, can turn into an adorable blob of water.
Oh, cool.
And then she reacts to elements. It's very fast. They call it a systemic style of play. So if she encounters a lava monster and she throws water at it, it becomes petrified and weakened. So now you can hit it in a more satisfactory way. Or if she goes to a substance called waste, it's bright green, it looks like a certain soda, she can jump really high and then there's a lot of puzzles within that as well, and it's super fun. And I got to meet the team in Lyon. That's never happened before.
Oh, cool.
Before the games come out, get to know them, hang out with them. It's been very open. Again, reminding me of ILM, because I'm in that Discord. I can see what everyone's doing, you know what I mean? And it's not like I'm going to dip my oar in. But if I suddenly was an expert on something they were talking about, I'm allowed to go and chat to them about that and, you know, help them make that better, if that makes sense, or collaborate. And I think that's what we should be looking at. Is we've been doing it in film and TV and theatre for a long time. And that openness is just, it seems like a really lovely place to work. So yeah, we did panels, a Let's Play. I interviewed Jasmine Bula, who's a bit of a TT RPG superstar. She's also writing it, and she's playing my mother, because why not? That'll make sense when it comes out. It's all good. We have certain skills. Let's just put it that way. In the family we're in, it will make sense. But you can play it right now, and it's a lovely community as well as a Discord for everyone to chat in. And we got our first physical fan art this weekend. Elise Moshuba, who's our producer, was signing things and taking pictures with fans, and she was manning the booth all weekend. It was very satisfying for her to actually meet people and see people playing it in real life and getting that feedback in real time. So, you know, fingers crossed it's a hit, because this is a very precarious industry and you can't always tell. But I really hope people play it and enjoy it.
Well, it sounds very cool. And I'm going to get very nerdy here. It looks like you went from playing a character named Nul to playing a character named One. So is that the goal, is to play like numerically named characters in ascending order from here on out?
That's a very good point, and I hadn't seen that before, but I will point out that Karlach is made of fire and One is made of water.
Oh, there you go.
Just to add the elemental side to it. So I just got to hit maybe I'll just work my way through all the numbers and elements as well in a very systemic way.
Well, listen, Samantha, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for bringing Darth Nul to life and joining me here today. And I don't know how much more of Nul we'll see in SWTOR, but I sure hope we see much more of you in the galaxy far, far away. I really do appreciate you coming on. And for folks who want to follow your work, where can they find you online?
Yeah, mainly Instagram, and obviously I post on YouTube and on Blue Sky. That seems to be where I exist at the moment. Thank you for having me on. It means a lot, you know, and it's incredible to live in an age where you get that feedback from fans. And I would say it's your interest in Nul is what's going to keep her in the game.
Data merge complete. Hello, I am Darth Nul's personality matrix, ready to assist in your research efforts.
What was all that? What happened to the other protocol, the Jedi?
It is here, along with its Sith counterpart. Put simply, I am Nul. Her memories, her experiences, her knowledge, from all stages of her life, now contained within this holocron. Nul believed that by fragmenting the contradictory parts of her being, she could better understand the nature of the galaxy, of the Force, and of herself. And now the inquiry is finally complete. It will take some time to process the collected data. Unfortunately, it appears the prolonged absence of Darth Nul herself has created many unforeseen conditions on this ship.
So we've noticed.
Again, a huge thank you to Samantha for coming on the show. I really hope you enjoyed getting to hear them talk about their experience bringing Darth Nul to life. Few things before I let you go today. Keith Koenig released his Q1 producer's letter. As always, it's a good read, and you should check it out. Also, Broadsword released an article with an update on DirectX 12 starting to take shape. I'll talk about that and the letter next episode. The Spring Abundance Festival ends on April 7th. This year's new reward is the Egg Basket Hover Pet. And April 7th is also when the current Twitch Drop campaign ends. Watch 5 hours of SWTOR content to earn the T2-26 Walker mount. And if you want to hear more from Samantha Béart talking about Darth Nul, check out SWTORista's YouTube channel. She sat down with Samantha and did a playthrough of some of Darth Nul's story moments. And that's the State of the Old Republic for today. Let me cut in the sublight engines and cue the music and congratulate you on surviving another half hour, give or take, listening to episode 142 of the State of the Old Republic podcast. I'm your host, Ted, and I thank you for tuning in. You can find this podcast on Buzzsprout and iTunes and wherever else you find your podcasts. Also, I'm putting these back up on YouTube. You can listen to the show directly from the show's site, which is sotorpodcast.com, and there is an RSS feed where you can subscribe to the podcast directly. If you have a question for the show, you can email me at sotorpodcast@gmail.com. As always, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, remember the Sith code, cake is a lie.